Long before the empires of Babylon, Persia, or Rome, the ancient lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers gave birth to the earliest civilizations. In what is now southern Iraq, the region known as Sumer was a patchwork of independent city-states, each ruled by its own king and devoted to its own patron deity. Cities such as Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Kish, and Umma rose like jewels from the plains. These cities were centers of trade, art, and innovation. Writing, mathematics, irrigation, and law all took early form here, yet Sumer was not a land of peace. The cities warred constantly, fighting for territory, prestige, and control of the vital canals that sustained life in the harsh Mesopotamian climate. Each ruler sought to claim the title of King of Kish, a symbolic term for supremacy over all Sumer. Around 2900 BCE, this era of city-states entered what historians call the early dynastic period. For nearly 6 centuries, alliances were formed and broken, and rival kings clashed endlessly on the floodplains of Mesopotamia. But the ceaseless conflict also produced military innovation, bureaucratic structure, and the first glimmers of statehood. By the middle of the 24th century BCE, one king achieved what others had only dreamed of, Lugalzagesi of Umma. Through diplomacy and conquest, he unified much of southern Mesopotamia under his command. He proclaimed himself ruler of the land between the rivers, a claim reinforced by his victories over neighboring city-states. His rule marked the high point of Sumerian political unification and the beginning of the end for the independent city-states. While Lugalzagesi's armies marched across Sumer, legend tells of a child born in secret to a high priestess in the city of Azupiranu near the Euphrates. Bound by temple vows forbidding motherhood, the priestess placed her infant son in a reed basket and set him adrift upon the river. The waters carried the child downstream where he was found by Aki, the royal gardener of Kish. The gardener raised the boy as his own, teaching him the ways of irrigation and labor. The child's name was Sargon, meaning the legitimate king. As he grew, his intelligence and charisma drew notice, and he entered the service of Orzababa, the king of Kish. Sargon became the royal cupbearer, a position of trust and influence close to the throne. Ancient stories tell of omens that unsettled Orzababa, dreams of drowning in rivers of blood, visions of Sargon favored by the goddess Inanna. Fearing betrayal, the king plotted his servant's death, sending him on missions meant to end his life. But fortune, or divine favor, protected Sargon. The surviving texts then fall silent, and when they resume, Sargon is no longer servant, but king of Kish. Whether myth or history, the legend of the basket-born child served a purpose. It portrayed Sargon as chosen by the gods yet humble in origin, a man of the people, unlike the hereditary priest-kings of old. From his throne in Kish, Sargon began a series of campaigns that would reshape the political map of the ancient world. His armies marched first against the very ruler who had unified Sumer, Lugal-Zagizi. Sargon's campaign was relentless. Contemporary inscriptions boast of 34 battles fought and won, with 50 city rulers, called Ensi, defeated along the way. City after city fell. Ur, Lagash, Umma, and finally Uruk, the capital of Lugal-Zaggisi himself. The conquered king was paraded in chains to Nippur, the sacred city of the god Enlil, where he was displayed as an offering before the temple. The act symbolized divine approval. The gods of Sumer now sanctioned Sargon's rule. After conquering the south, Sargon pushed to the edges of the known world. He reached the Persian Gulf, called the Lower Sea by the ancients, and washed his weapons in its waters, a symbolic gesture of total victory. By 2330 BCE, Sargon controlled all of Sumer and Akkad, creating a dominion that stretched from the Persian Gulf in the south to the Taurus Mountains in the north. This was no mere kingdom. For the first time in human history, diverse peoples, languages, and lands were united under a single central authority. The Akkadian Empire was born, the world's first true empire. At the heart of this new empire was Akkad, the newly founded capital whose exact location has been lost to history. From Akkad, Sargon ruled as king of the four quarters of the world. His administration established a template for imperial governance that would echo for millennia. Local rulers were either replaced by loyal Akkadian governors or retained as vassals, bound by oath to send tribute and soldiers. A system of standardized taxation, record keeping, and communication tied the empire together. The Akkadian language, a Semitic tongue written in cuneiform, became the administrative language of the realm, gradually supplanting Sumerian. Trade networks flourished. Caravans and ships carried copper, silver, and timber from faraway lands. From Dilmun came copper and timber, from Magan diorite stone, from Maluha, likely the Indus Valley civilization, came ivory, carnelian pearls, and exotic animals. For the first time, goods and ideas flowed freely between the great centers of the ancient world, Sumer, the Indus, and Egypt. The empire's prosperity rested on both military strength and economic connection. Sargon understood that empire required not only armies but divine legitimacy. He proclaimed that his power had been granted by the goddess Inanna herself. Religious symbolism and royal propaganda became vital tools of rule. One of his most strategic acts was appointing his daughter Enheduanna as high priestess of the moon, god Nana, in the city of Ur. Through her hymns and poetry, Enheduanna crafted a new religious language that united Sumerian and Akkadian beliefs. She depicted Inanna as a goddess who granted kingship to Sargon, intertwining divine will with imperial power. Enheduanna's writings are among the oldest known works of literature authored by a named individual. Through her words, the empire projected its message that Sargon ruled not by conquest alone, but by destiny. After 56 years of rule, Sargon died around 2280 BCE, leaving behind a vast prosperous realm. Yet even in death he could not secure peace. His empire, born in conquest, was surrounded by enemies and riddled with unrest. Upon his death, his son Rimush inherited the throne, and with it rebellion. The great cities of Sumer rose once more, eager to reclaim their independence. Rimush responded with brutal efficiency. Ancient records describe thousands slain and cities razed as he reasserted Akkadian control. He then turned eastward against Elam, defeating its armies and capturing the city of Susa. But power bred intrigue. Rimush was assassinated after only 9 years of rule, possibly by his own courtiers. His brother Manishtushu succeeded him, shifting the empire's focus toward maritime trade and the Persian Gulf. His expeditions reached distant lands beyond the Lower Sea, securing new resources and opening trade routes into modern Iran. Yet, like his brother, Manishtushu was killed by internal conspiracies. The empire's golden age arrived under Naram Sin, grandson of Sargon, who ruled from approximately 2254 to 2218 BCE. A skilled warrior and administrator, Naram Sin extended Akkadian dominance to its greatest extent. He began his reign by crushing widespread rebellions, ensuring that the fracturing empire would remain intact. Once stability returned, his armies turned outward. To the east, he subdued Elam and brought its rulers under Akkadian control. To the west and north, he conquered the wealthy kingdoms of Ebla and Mari, expanding the empire's reach to the Mediterranean Sea. At its height, the Akkadian Empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, an unprecedented achievement in the ancient world. To immortalize his victories, Naram Sin commissioned the Victory Stele, a monumental relief that remains one of the greatest masterpieces of ancient Mesopotamian art. It depicts the king towering above his soldiers, climbing a mountain over his fallen foes. He wears the horned crown of a god, a daring statement of divine kingship. For the first time in recorded history, a human ruler declared himself a living god. Naram Sin was no longer merely king of Akkad. He was king of the four quarters, ruler of all lands beneath the sky. Yet divine ambition brought divine peril. Despite its grandeur, the empire was fragile. Its vast size required constant military campaigns to suppress rebellions and defend trade routes. Toward the end of Naram Sin's reign, cracks began to appear. Revolts erupted in the south. To the east, Elamite hostility returned. Trade from distant lands dwindled as drought and famine spread across the region. According to later sources, Naram Sin provoked the wrath of the gods by plundering the sacred temple of Enlil in Nippur. The gods, angered by his arrogance, turned their favor away. Whether myth or reality, within a generation of his death, the empire began to unravel. Naram Sin's son, Sharkalishari, inherited a realm on the brink. The provinces of Sumer rebelled, and the northern frontiers were raided by nomadic tribes. From the Zagros Mountains came the Gutians, fierce highland peoples who overran Mesopotamia. The capital, Akkad, fell into ruin. Once a city of gold and grain, it vanished into the dust, its location forever lost. A poem written centuries later, The Curse of Akkad, sought to explain the catastrophe. It claimed that Naram Sin's sacrilege had angered the gods, who sent famine, rebellion, and invasion as punishment. The poem described empty canals, abandoned fields, and corpses left unburied, a world cursed by divine judgment. Modern research offers another explanation, a severe climate collapse around 2200 BCE. Archaeological evidence suggests a prolonged drought across the Near East, reducing crop yields and driving mass migrations. This environmental crisis may have crippled agriculture, disrupted trade, and unleashed the Gutian migrations that destroyed Akkad. Whatever the cause, divine wrath, invasion, or climate, by 2150 BCE, the Akkadian Empire had ceased to exist. Though the empire lasted barely a century, its impact on world history was immeasurable. Sargon's conquests created the first model of empire: centralized government, standing army, bureaucratic administration, and divine kingship. The Akkadian language became the lingua franca of Mesopotamia, evolving into Babylonian and Assyrian dialects that would dominate the region for the next 1,500 years. Later rulers, from Hammurabi of Babylon to the kings of Assyria, traced their lineage to Sargon, calling themselves heirs to the first great king. His name became legend, his empire a symbol of what human ambition could achieve.